Part 3 of chapter 6. No sooner was Miriam buried than the people complained again. The crowd stood before the tabernacle and quarreled with Moses. Why did you bring the Lord's community to this place? Aaron could not stop thinking about his sister. Every day he awakened with the aching heart. Every day he had to come here and serve the Lord, and every day these grown children turned out to be no better than their fathers and mothers. There is no water here. Why did you make us leave Egypt and bring us here to this terrible place? Aaron stepped forward. What do you know of Egypt? You weren't even born when we left that place. We've heard. We've come close enough to look back and see the green along the Nile. What do we have in this desert? There's no grain. There's no figs. There's no grapes or pomegranates. There's no water to drink. We wish we had died in the Lord's presence with our brothers. Aaron turned away so angry he knew if he remained, he would say or do something he would later regret. He looked at Moses, hoping to draw wisdom and patience from him, but his brother too was red with anger. Moses fell on his face at the entrance of the tabernacle, and Aaron went down beside him. He wanted to pound his fists into the ground. How long would the Lord expect them to lead these people? Did they think he and Moses had water to drink? How many times did these people have to witness a miracle before they believed that he and Moses were appointed by the Lord to lead them? You're the one who brought us to this place. They always blame us. It is your plan and that my brother and I die at their hands. They're ready to kill us. Lord, give them water to drink. You and Aaron must take the staff and assemble the entire community. As the people watch, command the rock over there to pour out its water. You'll get enough water from the rock to satisfy all the people and their livestock. Moses rose and went inside the tabernacle. He came out with Aaron's staff in his hand. Gather those rebels. Aaron went out ahead of him and shouted at the people to gather in front of the rock. You want water? Come and see it pour from the rock. They swarmed there, empty water bags in hand, still complaining. Moses pushed Aaron to one side and stood in front of all of them, the staff in his hand. Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water from this rock? Yes, give us water. Moses took the staff with both hands and hit the rock. Water, Moses, give us water, Moses. Face red, eyes blazing, Moses struck the rock again, harder this time. Water gushed forth. The people pressed forward, crying out, rejoicing, filling their cupped hands, filling their skin bags, laughing and cheering Moses and Aaron. Yay! Moses laughed with them, exultant. Or Aaron laughed with them, exultant. See how water flowed when his staff was wielded? Blessings on you, Moses. May you be praised, Aaron. Moses stood apart from them, staff in hand, head high, watching. Aaron cupped his hands and drank with the people. Aaron blushed with pleasure as people called out to praise him and Moses. The water continued to flow, and the Israelites brought their flocks and herds to drink. And still the water came. Never had water tasted so good. He wiped the droplets from his beard and grinned at Moses. They don't doubt us now, do they, brother? Because you did not trust me enough to demonstrate my holiness to the people of Israel, you will not lead them into the land I'm giving them. God spoke softly, but with a finality that made Aaron's blood go cold. The curse of the Levites was on him. He had lost his temper and given in to pride. He had forgotten the Lord's command. Command the rock. No, that wasn't true. He hadn't forgotten. He had wanted Moses to use his staff. He had cheered when water gushed from the rock. He had been proud and delighted when the people slapped him on the back. How quickly he had fallen headlong into sin, and now he would pay the consequences just like the rest of his generation. Even Miriam had repented and served others with gladness for almost 40 years. He would not set foot in the land God had promised the Israelites either. Miriam had died, and now he would die too. Aaron sank down and sat on a boulder, shoulders slumped, hands limp between his knees. What hope had he of ever being different than what he was, a sinner? Pride, Miriam had said. Pride slays men. Pride strips men of a future and a hope. He covered his face. I have sinned against the Lord, as have I. Aaron glanced up. His brother's face was ashen. He was bent like an old man, leaning heavily on the staff. Not as I have sinned, Moses. You have always praised the Lord and credited him with all righteousness. Not today. I allowed anger to rule over me, Moses said. Pride made me stumble, and now I too will die on this side of the Jordan. The Lord has told me that I will not enter the land he promised. No, Aaron wept. I am more to blame than you, Moses. I cried out for you to give us water as loudly as any of them. Is it right that it is right that I be denied a land of my own? I am a sinner. Sin is sin, Aaron. Let's not get into a quarrel of who's outdone the other in that regard. We're all sinners. It is but for the grace of God that we live and breathe at all. You were the one God chose to deliver Israel. Don't let your love for me blind you, my brother. God is our deliverer. Aaron held his head. Let your one mistake be on my head. Wasn't I the one who fashioned the molten calf and let the people run wild? Did I not try to steal some of your praise just now? We both stole glory from God, who gave the water. All I had to do was speak to the rock. And what did I do but make a show for their benefit? And why else but to gain their attention rather than to remind them God is their provider? You've been telling them that for years, Moses. It needed to be said again. Moses sat beside him on the boulder. Aaron, are we not responsible for our own sins? The Lord chastens me because I didn't trust him. The people need to trust him, only in him. I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? The Lord called me to stand beside you, to help you. And what help have I been over the years? If I were a better man, a better priest, I would have realized the temptation. I would have warned you. Moses sighed. I lost my temper, Aaron. I didn't forget what the Lord commanded. I didn't think speaking would be impressive enough. His fingers tightened on Aaron's knee. We must not be discouraged, Aaron. Doesn't a father discipline a son in order to train him up in the way he should go? And where will we go now, Moses? God has said we'll never set foot in the promised land. What hope have we? God is our hope. Aaron could not stop his tears. His throat ached, his chest heaved. Oh, God, I failed you and my brother yet again. I was so destined to stumble through life. Oh, God, Lord, surely of all men, Moses has been the most humble. Surely he deserves to cross the Jordan River and walk the pastures of Canaan, even if only for a day. I understand why you're keeping me out. I deserve to remain in the desert. I deserve death for making that detestable golden calf. Am I not reminded of it every time I sacrifice a bullock? But, oh Lord, my brother has been faithful servant to you. He loves you. No man is more humble than my brother. Let the blame fall on me for being such a fool and being so weak a priest that I failed to see sin when it crouched ready to kill our hopes and dreams. Be silent and know that I am God. Aaron swallowed hard, fear coursing through him. It would do no good to beg or argue, and he knew the rest as though spoken into his heart. The people had to know the cost of sin. In the eyes of God, all men and women were equal. Aaron was without excuse, and so was Moses. Only God is holy and to be praised. They returned together to the tabernacle. Moses went inside, and Aaron stood outside the veil, his heart heavy. He could hear Moses speaking softly, his words indistinct, his anguish clear. Aaron bowed his head, the pain in his chest suffocating. My fault, Lord, my fault. What kind of high priest am I who fails at every turn of life and cannot see sin when it stands before him? Forgive me, Lord. My sins are ever before me. I have done what is evil in your sight. You have judged me justly. Oh, if only you would purify me so that I could be clean like a newborn child. If only you would wash me clean of my sins and make me hear with renewed joy the promise of your salvation. He wiped his tears away quickly, lest they fall on the chest piece of his priestly garment. I must be clean. I must be clean. O God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of all creation, how will I ever be clean, Lord? I am clean on the outside, but inside I feel like a grave of old bones. I'm full of sin. And it poured over today as if from a fouled pot. Even when I offer the atonement sacrifice, I feel the sin in me. I fight against it, Lord, but it's still there. Aaron heard Moses weeping. God had not changed his mind. The promised land was lost to both of them. Aaron covered his face, heartbroken. Moses, poor Moses. Oh God, hear my prayer. You've seen me weaken. Don't let me succumb to sin again or cause trouble for my brother. Don't let me stand up in pride and lead the people astray. Oh God, I would rather you took my life than I give it to sin again. Moses sent messengers to the king of Edom, requesting permission to cross his land in order to lessen the distance to Canaan. Moses promised the Israelites would not go through any field or vineyard or drink water from any well. They would turn neither to the right nor the left until they reached the trade route called the King's Highway. The king of Edom answered that he would not give permission, and if the Israelites tried to cross his land, he would march out and attack them with a sword. Moses sent messengers again with assurances they would only go along the main road and would pay for whatever water their animals might need. Again, the king of Edom denied them passage and came out with a large army to make sure no attempt was made to cross his land. The cloud moved from Kadesh, and Moses followed the angel of the Lord along the boundary of Edom toward Mount Hor. Aaron walked beside his brother, desolate. When they camped, he performed the evening sacrifice. Depressed, he returned to his tent and carefully removed his priestly garments. Then he sat in the doorway and stared out. All day, while walking, he had felt the barrenness of the land around him, and now, sitting here, he remembered the fields of wheat in Egypt and barley, the green pasture lands of Goshen. We were slaves, he reminded himself. He thought about the taskmasters. He tried to remember how many times he had felt the lash on his back and the heat of the desert sun beating down on him. And the smell of water filled with silt washing along the banks of the Nile, the ibises tipping their beaks in and drying out fish. Raising his head weakly, he looked up at the pillar of fire. God, help me, help me. He heard the voice again, soft yet firm. Aaron waited all night and then rose in the morning and put on his priestly garments. He went to the tabernacle, washed, and performed the morning sacrifices as usual. And then Moses came to him, Eleazar at his side. Moses took a slow breath, but he could not speak. Eleazar looked perplexed. Aaron put his hand out and gripped his brother's arm. I know, Moses. The Lord spoke to me too, yesterday at sunset. Eleazar looked between them. What has happened? Aaron looked at his son. We are to go up Mount Hor. When? Now. Aaron was thankful his son did not ask why. Nor did he ask that they postpone the journey until the cool of the evening. Eleazar simply started out toward the foot of the mountain. Maybe there was hope for Israel after all. The climb was difficult, for there was only a narrow pathway between and around rugged rock outcroppings. Up, up. Aaron climbed until he was exhausted and every muscle in his body ached. He kept putting one foot in front of the other, praying the Lord would give him strength. It would be the first time the Lord had called him to the top of a mountain, and the last. After long hours of travail, he reached the top. His heart was pounding heavily, his lungs burning. He felt more alive than he ever had before as he stretched out trembling hands, and gave thanks to God. The cloud pressed in and rose, turning from gray to orange gold, then flashing red. Aaron felt warmth course through him and then dissipate, leaving him weak. He knew if he sat down, he would never rise again, and he needed to stand a little longer. So he stood alone for the first time in years and looked at the plain below, speckled with thousands of tents. Each tribe had its position, and in the center was the tabernacle. Flocks of sheep and herds of cattle grazed on the outer edges of the camp, and the vastness of the wilderness spread out before him. Eleazar helped Moses up the last few feet, and then the three stood together, gazing out over Israel. You need to rest, Father. I will, forever. Moses looked at him and still could not speak. Aaron went to him and embraced him. Moses' shoulders shook, and Aaron held him tighter and spoke softly. Oh, my brother, I wish I had been a better and stronger man to stand at your side. Moses did not let go of him. The Lord sees our faults, Aaron. He sees our failures and frailty, but what matters to him is our faith. We have both stumbled, my brother. We've both fallen. And the Lord has lifted us back up with the strength of his mighty hand and remained with us. He drew back slowly. Aaron smiled. Never had he loved and respected a man as much as he did his younger brother. It is not our faith, Moses, but God's faithfulness. What's going on? Aaron turned to his son. The Lord has said the time has come for me to join my ancestors in death. Eleazar flinched, his eyes darting from Aaron to his uncle. What does he mean? Your father is to die here on Mount Hor. No! Aaron felt his hair stand down the back of his neck. Yes, Eleazar. He could already see the seed of rebellion in his son's eyes. This cannot be. Do not question the Lord. You have to go with us to Canaan, Father. His eyes filled with angry tears of confusion. You have to come. Be silent. Aaron gripped his son's arm. It's for the Lord to say when a man lives or dies. Oh, God, forgive him, please, he gentled. The Lord has shown me more kindness than I deserve. He has allowed you to come and attend me. He would not die surrounded by all the members of his family as so many did, but he would not die alone. Sobbing, Eleazar bowed his head. Aaron ran his hand over his son's back. You must be strong in the days ahead, Eleazar. You must walk the road the Lord gives you and never depart from it. Cling to the Lord. He is our Father. Moses let out his breath slowly. Remove your clothing, Eleazar. Eleazar's head came up and he stared at him. What? We must fulfill the Lord's command. Aaron was as surprised as his son. When Eleazar looked at him, he couldn't answer the silent question. Do as you're told. He only knew he was to die on top of the mountain. Beyond that, Aaron knew nothing. Moses shrugged off the water bag he had carried. When Eleazar was undressed, Moses washed him from head to foot. He anointed him with oil and took new linen garments from another pack. Put these on. And then Aaron understood. His heart swelled until he felt it would burst with joy. When Moses looked at him, Aaron knew to remove his priestly garments. He laid them out carefully on a flat boulder, one piece at a time, until he was standing in his linen undergarments. Moses took the blue robe and helped Eleazar slip it over his head, the tiny woven pomegranates and gold bells tinkling at the hem. Next, he put the embroidered tunic on his nephew and then tied the multicolored sash snugly around his waist. He attached the blue, purple, scarlet, and gold ephod at Eleazar's shoulders with 2 onyx stones, 6 tribes of Israel engraved on each. Eleazar would carry the nation on his shoulders every day for the rest of his life. Moses hung the chess piece on which were the 12 stones representing the tribes of Israel. He took the Urim and Thummim and tucked them into the pocket over Eleazar's heart. Tears ran down Aaron's face as he looked at his son. Eleazar, God's chosen high priest. The Lord had once told Aaron that the line of high priests for generations to come would descend from him, but he had been convinced he had spoiled all possibility of that great honor happening. How many times had he sinned? He'd been just like the people, complaining of hardships, lusting after things he didn't have, rebelling against Moses and God, greedy for more power and authority, blaming others for trouble he brought on himself by his own disobedience, afraid to trust in God for everything. Oh, that golden calf, that wretched golden idol of sin. And yet, God kept his promise. Oh, Lord, you are merciful to me. Oh, Lord, you alone are faithful. Even as the joy spread through him, sorrow was in its wake, for he knew Eleazar would struggle, as he had struggled. His son would spend the rest of his life trying to learn and obey the law. The weight of it would press him down, for he too would come to realize how sin dwelt in the secret, dark places of his heart. He would try to crush its head with his heel, but he too would fail. All eyes would be on him, listening to what he said, watching how he lived, and the people would see that Eleazar was merely a man trying to live a godly life. Every morning and every evening, he would perform sacrifices. He would live with the smell of blood and incense. Once a year, he would pass through the veil into the most holy place and put the blood of atonement, the atonement sacrifice, on the horns of the altar. And his son would know then, as Aaron knew now, that he would have to do it again and again and again. Eleazar would be burdened by his sin forever. God help us. Lord, have mercy on us. My son will try as I have tried, and he will fail. You have given us the law so we can live holy lives, but Lord, you know we're not holy. We're dust. Will there ever come a day when we will be one people with one mind and one heart and one spirit, one in striving to please you? Wash us with hyssop, O Lord. Cleanse us from iniquity. Circumcise our hearts. Trembling and too weak to stand any longer, Aaron sank to the ground and rested his back against a stone. Is that the reason for the law, Lord? To show us we can't live it out perfectly? When we break one law, no matter how small it seems, we're lawbreakers. Even if we returned to our mother's womb and started all over, we would sin again. We would have to be born again, made into entirely new creations. Oh Lord, save us. Send us a Savior who can do all you ask, who can stand before the most holy place without sin, someone who can be our high priest and present the perfect sacrifice, someone who has the power to change us from within so that we can stand without sinning. We need a high priest who can understand our weaknesses, a high priest who has faced all of the same temptations we face and yet hasn't sinned, a high priest who can stand near the throne of God with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us when we need it. Moses sat beside him and spoke softly. Eleazar came near, but Aaron lifted his hand, staying him. No, for the sake of the people, Aaron could see him struggle. His son wanted to embrace him, but death was too close to risk reaching out and embracing one another one last time. A high priest must remain clean. Eleazar must not be defiled. Hands clenching and unclenching, Eleazar remained at a distance. Another stood on the mountain with them, a man, yet not a man. Aaron had seen him walking beside Moses and leading the people out into the desert. He'd seen him again standing within the rock of Marah when the water had poured forth for the people. Moses' friend. He was wearing a long white robe with a gold sash across the chest. His eyes were bright like pillars of fire. His feet were as bright as bronze refined in the furnace, and his face as bright as the sun in all of its brilliance. The man extended his hand. Aaron. With a long, deep sigh, Aaron breathed out softly in obedience. Yes, Lord, yes. And that's the end of chapter 6.